So I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. It's 7 o'clock, and I will read our introductory statement. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts, dated March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. So this time I'll ask if anyone is recording the meeting, please use the raise hand function or speak and unmute yourself so that we can hear. I don't see that anyone has so indicated that they are recording, so we will proceed. And I would first like to ask if the AdCom has a quorum that they would like to convene their committee.
Evening, Joe. There is no quorum of the advisory committee present at this time. If that changes, I'll take appropriate action later on, but thank you.
Thank you. And for the Public Safety Building Committee, do we have a quorum for that committee that they would need to convene?
I'm not sure I see Bob yet.
Oh,
Does anyone see him?
I do not.
I don't see him either.
Michelle, can you tell if there's a quorum of that committee though?
Let's see, Tally, Bruce,
Andy,
everyone.
He's down there, yeah.
I only see those three so far. There's Bob.
good evening, Bob. Could you, I don't see that he's got his
He's trying
audio.
to connect.
Bob Garrity, you there?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Wait a minute.
How are you? I was asking if there is a quorum for your committee as to whether or not you need to open your meeting. Are you speaking? Because I don't hear you.
Bob, you're muted again.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, good.
Okay. Sure. How about if I do a head count to see who is here for my committee? Paul Healy, I don't think he's going to be here, but Paul Healy, Joe Kelly, Kelly Loda, okay, Bruce McAloney,
Here.
okay, Donna Smallwood, I believe she's got another meeting, and Andy Touche. Okay, so it sounds like,
Andy's here.
okay, Andy's here. So we only have three as of right now.
Okay. So if you don't mind just monitoring, and then if it turns out that other committee members arrive, you can open your meeting at that point.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. So welcome, everyone. We have one item on our agenda. This is a public information session in anticipation of a special town meeting scheduled for November 21st, 2020 at noon to contemplate and consider the purchase of property at 335 Lincoln Street. Thank you to all who have taken the time to attend this public information session. There are going to be a number of speakers this evening who will be reviewing the need to proceed with this acquisition. And as I did at our last public information session, I'm going to give everyone a sneak preview as to what you're going to hear. First, you're going to hear that the cost to purchase the property at 335 Lincoln Street is $5,525,000. That is the purchase price plus closing costs. The benefits of moving forward with that acquisition, I've identified four. First, the acquisition will give the town the opportunity and ability to plan and design for a new fire station to replace the existing North Fire Station at 230 North Street, which really is in desperate need of being replaced. Second, not only can we replace the fire station, but we can do so at a location that is optimal for the town in terms of responding timely to call volumes that are expected for the foreseeable future. The third benefit is that it gives the town the opportunity to plan for and achieve cost savings by simultaneously, oops, someone just shared a screen. I wasn't expecting that, sorry. To achieve cost savings by simultaneously replacing our outdated police headquarters with a modern facility that would be co-located with the fire station at 335 Lincoln Street. And fourth, by allowing us to move the police headquarters from its current location at Town Hall, purchase of the property will free up space to allow for expansion of the senior center, which is currently dramatically undersized and needs major renovations in order properly to serve our senior community. So with that, Michelle, I see that you've got the slides up. If you could move to slide 2, please. So you can see the property. This is all leading up to the special town meeting scheduled for, as I said, November 21st. And the financial impact here is we are looking to purchase a property at 335 Lincoln Street at a cost, as I said before, of $5,525,000. And the property is intended to be used for a to-be designed new public safety facility combining North Fire Station and a police headquarters. The reason we need to move forward now is that the town's opportunity to purchase the property will expire unless we notify the seller by November 30th of this month that we plan to proceed. So that is the reason that we are holding town meeting on November 21st. We have an obligation set up in the P&S that requires that we notify the seller, if we want to proceed. So with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Steve Murphy, the chief of the Hingham Fire Department, who's going to discuss the needs for moving the North Fire Station from its current location at 230 North Street to a different location that we've identified as 335 Lincoln Street. Chief Murphy.
Thank you, Joe. Today we are discussing the North Fire Station, also known as Torrent or Station 2, which is located, as Selectman Fisher just mentioned, at 230 North Street. As you can see from this slide, the town has 3 fire stations, which are geographically located throughout. One in North Hingham, one in South, and fire headquarters, which is located in Hingham Center. The history of the North Fire Station is that the building was built in 1941 by Edgar Walker, a local architect who still has family in the community. The station has served the town very well for almost 80 years, but unfortunately during that time, it has only had minimal upgrades. Specifically, it was renovated in 2001 with modifications to the living quarters, which includes the kitchen, sleeping quarters, and bathrooms. Truthfully, though, the renovations were more cosmetic and did not include major structural upgrades, so most of the building, including the utilities, are original. In 2013, the Board of Selectmen recognized that the station needed an upgrade, so they created a Fire Department Assets Review Committee, which looked at both the North and South fire stations. This committee eventually led to the formation of the North Fire Station Building Committee in 2015. This new committee was charged with conducting a feasibility study to see if it was possible to renovate the current building. Unfortunately, they found that renovation was not possible due to certain site and building restrictions, ultimately leading to their recommendation that the town find a new location for a fire station to serve the north part of town. Work continued over the next few years to identify a new location, and a few properties were pursued, unfortunately without success. In early 2020, the property at 335 Lincoln Street was identified as a possibility. The 2020 annual town meeting authorized the creation of a public safety building committee and funded a feasibility study. There are a few different things that factor into the proper location for a fire station. Unlike the police department, where the cruisers are out on patrol, we respond from the station. This requires that fire stations are usually strategically located to allow the crews to respond to incidents within their district in less than 4 minutes. Obviously, traffic and driving conditions can impact that, so we also want to make sure that the station is located on major routes and not in residential neighborhoods. We also want the building to have easy access to lights and other things that will help shorten our response. The final and crucial consideration is that we want to locate the station close to where most of our calls are, both current and based on anticipated population growth. It is safe to say that the town of Hingham has grown in the 80 years since North Fire Station was built, so what once may have been the correct location may no longer be. For example, there's been more development in certain areas, including Route 3A and the shipyard. All of these factors have led us to choose the current property, which meets all of our location considerations. Another factor that the 2015 North Fire Station Building Committee considered is the commuter train. They wanted to make sure that any new location was on the same side of the tracks as the current station, thus allowing us to continue to serve North Hingham. The committee's recommendation to seek an alternate location was based on a number of reasons. These can be summarized into 3 categories: size and site restrictions, safety, and age. From a size perspective, there have been many changes in the fire service over the last 80 years. First, the size of the vehicles have grown much larger in all dimensions: length, height, and weight. Unfortunately, this limits what can operate out of the current North Fire Station. Specifically, our ladder truck, also known as the Quint, which is also the only fire truck we have that can reach the taller buildings in the shipyard, physically can't fit in the building. In addition, the property itself is too small for the length of larger modern fire apparatus. This becomes a safety concern and is evident every time the trucks exit the building because the front apparatus ramp is too small. We see this on a daily basis every time the crews perform a vehicle truck check, which requires pulling the truck out under the front ramp. When the crews do this, the fire engine actually blocks the sidewalk. The committee realized that even if we could pick up the building and move it further back, it still wouldn't fix the problem. The lot is physically too small. Another site problem that helped reach the recommendation to relocate is because North Fire Station is built over the town brook. The building is supported by pylons with a structural floor. The 2015 feasibility study found the only way to bring the building up to meet current seismic codes was to demolish the building and start from scratch. The committee therefore recognized that it did not make sense to tear down the building and rebuild on a piece of property that was too small. Beyond the size restrictions, there have been many other changes in the fire service that impact our ability to serve the community since the North Fire Station was built. One of the biggest is the changes in our mission itself. Back in the 1940s, the fire department was not involved in emergency medical services, also known as EMS, which accounts for between 60 to 70% of our calls for services. As such, North Fire Station does not have adequate storage for medical equipment or a separate triage room to properly treat walk-in medicals. There have been other mission changes as well, such as responding to hazardous materials incidents, water rescues, and others that require us to store vehicles and equipment in a building that it was never designed for. Another example of design changes is that female firefighters didn't exist when the station was built. Therefore, it doesn't have the proper layout of living spaces such as adequate individual sleeping quarters, bathrooms, etc. The final size considerations are lack of space for both training or proper fitness area. Studies have shown that cardiac disorder is the leading cause of firefighter fatalities. We need a space for firefighters to exercise while they're on duty. Yes, we have fitness rooms at fire headquarters, but allowing crews to go to that station while on duty would defeat the purpose of responding from the satellite stations and not allow us to meet the 4-minute response time. The second main category why the building is no longer suitable is safety. Over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a focus on cancer in the fire service. Sadly, this has become the second leading cause of death for firefighters. The threat is a direct result of the carcinogens and other chemicals that the firefighters are exposed to. Whenever they come into contact with smoke and other products of combustion, the carcinogens gets absorbed into their fire gear, uniforms, and even through their skin. We need to be able to properly decontaminate and clean both the firefighters and their equipment as quickly as we can to decrease their risk. We cannot properly do this at our current station. To help protect from the cancer risk, many modern fire stations are designed with different zones: hot, warm, and cold. The idea is that the hot zone is where the contaminants exist, and the cold zone is a safe area, such as the living spaces. The warm zone is a section in between. Unfortunately, North Fire Station doesn't allow for this. In reality, the building has 2 cold zones that are separated by the apparatus floor, which is a hot zone. So when the firefighters are working, they have to walk between the two to go from the kitchen or eating area to the living quarters, which includes the bathrooms. The final concern with North Fire Station is the age. As I've mentioned, the building has only had minimal upgrades over the years. As you can see from this picture, the boiler is original. It has the original plumbing, most of the original electrical, etc. And unfortunately lacks certain safety features, such as the sprinkler system. Thank you.
Chief Murphy, thank you. Before proceeding, I noticed that our chair, Mary Power, has joined us. Mary, did you want to interject some comments, or should we just proceed?
Thank you, Joe. Please proceed.
Great. Good to have you at the meeting. So Chief, what I heard is that for the safety of our town and the health of our firefighters, we need to find and move to a new location from the current location of the North Fire Station. What I heard is it's dangerous, what we currently have. It's dangerous to exit. The facilities are not adequate to decontaminate gear. The safety of firefighters is really not being prioritized at this location. Living areas are inadequate. The building's in disrepair. So we need to move forward and find another location. The town has considered different locations and determined that our best option is to relocate the North Fire Station to the property at 335 Lincoln Street. Our vision, the selectmen's vision, is to combine the North Fire Station with a new headquarters for the police. The police headquarters currently is not adequate and needs substantial work. We can achieve construction efficiencies and operational efficiencies by co-locating police and fire together at 335 Lincoln Street. So at this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Chief David Jones of the Hingham Police Department. Chief.
Thank you, Joe. I'd like to start with a brief history of how the police department came to be located at the Town Hall complex. In 1967, an addition was added to the then high school, which is now the Town Hall. This addition is the current space that the police department and senior center occupy. In 1998, the Hingham Police Department moved to Central Street. We immediately came to the realization that we were already out of space, and we ran out of places to put items being moved into our new location. In 2011, the Regional Emergency Communication Center was created and took 1,500 square feet away from the police department. The entire records division, public lobby for records, traffic sergeant's office, and storage were lost. In 2015, a study committee was formed to look at the space needs of the departments that are located at Town Hall, including the police department. This involved tours of other police stations, including joint police and fire facilities. In 2020, an opportunity arose to purchase 335 Lincoln Street, a property that could house a combined police headquarters and fire substation. Our current facility was never designed to be a police station. As I mentioned previously, it was originally built as an addition to a school, and the police department was fit into what space was left. After moving in, we immediately lost areas designed for other functions to storage. For example, we lost pre-booking detainee holding areas, which are now used for storage of 2 police motorcycles, tires, cruiser maintenance supplies, and other equipment. When we moved from Lincoln Street to our current facility, we were downsized by 2 male cells, 1 female cell, and 3 full-size garage bays, going from 4 garage bays to only 1. There is no available storage anywhere in our current facility, and we are forced to store equipment and supplies in jail cells, under tables, under stairs, and in hallways. In fact, there is only 1 small storage closet outside of the booking area for general storage, and we are forced to use storage in the attic of Town Hall. In our current facility, the roll call room serves 6 functions. It's the roll call room where we hold shift briefings 3 times a day for each shift. There are between 9 to 20 staff members working depending on the shift. It's a training room, which is undersized for this use. There are only 24 seats available at full capacity. In order to host most trainings, a minimum of 30 seats is required, along with available parking, which we do not have. This room also serves as a community room that we use for our Citizens Police Academy, Boy and Girl Scout events, and other community outreach meetings. It serves as a conference room where we hold staff meetings or other departmental meetings, and it's the only space that we can use as an interview room outside of the secure detainee booking area. And it's also the officer's lunch and break room, and it can't be used for this when any of the above functions are happening. So the officers are forced to take meal breaks in their cruisers or any other location that they can find. The formation of the Regional Dispatch Center necessitated our entire records division with a public lobby and storage to be squeezed into the only conference room that we had at the station, and eliminated any public-facing window or lobby for community members looking for a copy of a police report, an accident report, or to come meet with any detectives or the administrative staff. The only way the public can now access records is through a small mail slot in a door of a stairwell, and the records clerk needs to stand within 2 feet of a high-use restrooms when interacting with the public through that mail slot. There is no privacy for the exchange of sensitive personal information in this public stairwell. Our armory is grossly undersized, and we have no room for storage of training equipment and cleaning supplies. There's no area for officers to clean weapons, and there is no plumbing or ventilation, and strong solvents are used for cleaning in this room. Our locker rooms are also undersized. Both male and female locker rooms are maxed out, and personal items have to be stored on top of lockers, on and under benches, and on any available floor space. Radios, batteries, and flashlights have to be charged on sink countertops. In the male locker room, lockers had to be installed in the shower room and in a hallway, restricting movement and not allowing people to move past each other. The lockers that are installed are high school style lockers and are not designed for public safety. They are narrow and do not allow air movement between garments that are hung up inside, such as wet rain jackets or body armor that has been saturated by sweat. The current standard for public safety lockers have built-in electrical outlets for charging equipment, as well as ventilation. We have significant parking challenges. There are only 21 parking spaces, and we currently have 22 police vehicles, meaning that there are no available parking spaces for staff when they are occupied, forcing vehicles to park in a narrow alleyway and reducing that to a 1-lane travelway. Emergency vehicle traffic is often delayed due to vehicles entering or leaving. There's no parking for our radar speed trailers or our message signboards. An ambulance cannot fit into our current garage space, creating a serious safety issue for any detainees and the officers due to them having to bring prisoners outside of the secure area of the garage. The garage bay is also used for storage out of necessity, and there should be no items at all stored in this area for obvious safety reasons. We cannot bring multiple prisoners into this area due to only one cruiser being able to occupy the space at a time, and we are prohibited from doing any maintenance or repairs to our cruisers and equipment when the garage is being used due to arrests. Fire department apparatus cannot access the rear of our station due to the overcrowded parking and vehicles parked in the alleyway. We simply have no available office space, and many people are forced into sharing already cramped spaces. The office you see on the bottom left is shared by 5 people: 2 firearms licensing officers, our animal control officer, our domestic violence advocate, our police mental health clinician, and it also serves as the only private office space for our officers and detectives to use. And this can only happen if none of the other individuals are working. In our detective division, 4 detectives are forced to share a small room. There is no area for them to privately meet with victims or witnesses of serious crimes, or for them to hold meetings or briefings with outside agencies. Other offices that were designed for 1 person have had to be doubled up out of necessity. Our lobby area, which is the only public area in the station, is vastly undersized. There are no private areas for members of our community to privately speak with officers. So you could have a victim of a crime, such as identity fraud, speaking with an officer and providing necessary information such as their name, address, date of birth, social security number, and phone numbers within earshot of anyone else who happens to be in the lobby. We frequently have multiple sets of people in the lobby at the same time who are looking for information or directions, dropping off unwanted medications in our Dropbox, or to file a police report. Often a victim of a serious crime, such as a sexual assault or domestic violence incident, are forced to speak with officers in this public lobby. The space is the only entrance and exit to the facility for the public. So this is the same area that bailed prisoners exit from, right into the same space where a victim or witness of a crime could come face to face with a person arrested in the same case that they are involved in. In closing, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to be part of this important project. The men and women of the Hingham Police Department continue to work to provide the best possible service despite the significant challenges of our current space. Thank you.
Chief, thank you. There are strong and compelling needs to expand and relocate the police headquarters. There clearly is inadequate space. There are safety issues, health concerns, and parking challenges. There's no privacy for officers or members of the public. Small spaces are used for multiple purposes that jeopardizes their safe use for the mission of the police department. It makes sense to address those issues now, at the same time that we address the challenges of North Fire Station by co-locating the police headquarters with North Fire Station at 335 Lincoln Street. That move would not only achieve benefits for our police and fire services, it also will free up space that we can use to expand the senior center to a size that will better serve our senior residents. I'd like to introduce Dawn Serber, the Chair of the Council on Aging, and Jennifer Young, the Director of our Elder Services Department. I think actually Dawn will speak first and then she can introduce Jennifer. Dawn, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you very
Welcome.
much. Thank you, Joe. As Joe mentioned, I am the chair of the Hingham Council on Aging and a 38-year resident of the town. As chair for the past 3 years and as a member for 8 years of the council, I can tell you that the Hingham Senior Center staff are some of the best that I have seen. And they are really, truly a great resource for our town. We are lucky to have them and the 130 or so volunteers who work for and with seniors and their families in our town. The building, however, which houses the senior center, as you will hear from Jennifer, our director, in a minute, is inadequate. It does not meet the needs of the fastest growing population in Hingham, our seniors. The Executive Office of Elder Affairs recommends 4 to 5 feet of square footage per senior in a community for a senior center, which, if using census data from Hingham in 2018 in the 4-foot number and removing anyone who lives in Linden Ponds, even though they do use our center, we would need almost 24,000 square feet. We currently have 5,000. I've had the opportunity to work with and in other senior centers in Massachusetts. And while our staff, I would say, is probably one of the best, our facility is woefully inadequate and does not meet the needs of our seniors. The seniors of Hingham, which I am one, are a valuable and important part of our community, and they deserve a space that reflects their value. So I would like now to turn it over to Jennifer Young, who is our Executive Director of the Hingham Elder Services Department. Is going to tell you specifically about some of the issues and needs of the senior center. Jennifer?
Jennifer, I'm sorry, but we're not having, the sound is not coming through. Jennifer, we're still having trouble hearing you.
Hear anything.
Jennifer, now we're able to hear you.
Okay, I promise I didn't do anything different. I apologize. I'll hold the mic a little bit closer. I just want to say thank you to Dawn for the introduction and acknowledge that for 50 years, the town of Hingham has recognized the need for residents age 60 and over to access programs and services to engage in a healthy aging process. In 1970, the Council on Aging was established and operated out of the Hingham Community Center. 6 years later, a 1,500 square foot space was developed inside of the Hersey House, where the center operated for 22 years. In 1998, the center moved to its current location on Central Street, adjacent to the police station in Town Hall. The current facility is 22 years old and has served the seniors well, but we are very limited and have some obvious deficiencies. Our current space, as Don mentioned, is approximately 5,000 square feet, which is seriously undersized to serve the current senior population of 7,345 residents. Over the next 10 years, seniors will represent 40% of the Hingham population at nearly 10,000 residents. And we
Jennifer,
serve
excuse me,
Yes.
if you could speak, just maybe move yourself a little closer to the microphone so we could hear you a little better. That'd be helpful.
I apologize. I know we ran into this the other night and I have a new microphone here that we're working on.
Yeah, it's barely audible. So if you could just, okay.
I deeply apologize. Okay, let's try this and see if this is better. As I was mentioning, we serve more than just the seniors in the population. We provide information and services to anyone caring for an older adult. The residents that come into the center aren't coming in for an errand and leaving. Some of them are with us from open to close. So given those numbers, it's no surprise that we have inadequate program space. And after my brief discussion, you will see a couple of pictures of the inside of the center. We have 3 to 4 program rooms, forcing instructors and seniors to compete for space. We place very strict limits on attendance, and we use meeting rooms at the library and in town hall for our programs, which can be disruptive to town offices and difficult for seniors with mobility or transportation issues. We have inadequate clinical space, inadequate storage and kitchen facilities. We do not have a health room necessary to conduct clinics. Our clinics take place in our living room area behind a cloth divider. We have one closet to store all of our supplies, further limiting the types of programming we offer. Our kitchen is residential in design, outdated, and has compliance concerns, and is too small for the programs we need to provide. We lack private rooms for confidential consultations, such as health insurance counseling, free simple tax filings, and other essential services, where personal, confidential, and HIPAA-protected information is exchanged. Some services take place out in the open, as discreetly as we can, or myself or a staff person volunteers our office for use. For those of you that have ever been to town hall, it's not a secret that parking is a challenge, and this leads to access to the center. I'm sorry, excuse me. This leads to a lack of access to the center. Seniors leave when they don't find nearby parking and they stop coming, which is not good for seniors or for a community that prioritizes health and inclusion. And my daughter's stepping into the meeting. I apologize. We have compliance and access issues. Our doorways and hallways are not wide enough and are very confining, creating a fall hazard when classes turn over. The hall is barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. The bathrooms are original to 22 years ago. When someone needs personal care assistance in the restroom, we actually have to assign a staff person to guard the door, as we don't have modern day companion style restrooms. We have a lack of visibility from the street. We can be difficult to find, especially for new seniors. And there's no protection from inclement weather. And like the police department, we have inadequate space for our staff who share very close quarters. And as Don mentioned, we rely heavily on our 130 volunteers to help us run, and we don't have a space for them to work. My staff or myself will share our desk or space, and our existing footprint does not give us room to spread out in any way. Here's a picture of our current kitchen facility that we use. We actually share this space with South Shore Elder Services for the Meals on Wheels program, which limits our use of the space. We turn down food, which should benefit seniors in need because we don't have proper dry or frozen food storage for emergency meals. We use this space with 8 to 10 people trying to prepare and serve meals to the seniors. The wash sink, as you can see, is not ADA compliant, and it's really hard for a wheelchair or a person in a walker to move around in the space. The next slide you see here is our multi-purpose room. We hold most of our programs in here. You could actually take a yoga class on the same floor that we just serve breakfast in. We store furniture stacked around the room, decreasing our usable floor space. And because this is the most suitable room for most programs, we're limited to the number of programs that can run at the same time. So this next slide will give you the idea of a breadth of programming that a modern center can offer. At over 100 programs in a month, the offerings are quite expansive. They have flexible, soundproof rooms that can be utilized for many purposes, with walls that move and screens that drop down. They have dedicated lecture rooms, health rooms, and art rooms with kilns and sinks and storage for supplies. Our seniors have to transport their own supplies in and out of the building, which can be a deterrent for a lot of older adults. The final slide you'll see here is what we can do in Hingham, what we're capable of. We are maxed out at about 30 programs a month. Our seniors want to learn, they want to work out and socialize, but we can't introduce new programs and still maintain the long-running clubs and classes that we've been providing. Many older adults can't get what they want from us, so unfortunately, they go to Marshfield and Duxbury and other senior centers. The needs and interests of our seniors today is wider and far more complex than what the center was designed for, and the population continues to grow dramatically. So given the appropriate space, we could do much better by our seniors and the health of the community at large. And we really don't want to miss this opportunity. So I want to thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Jennifer, thank you. Clearly, space is inadequate, parking is inadequate, and the quality of the services that we can provide to our seniors has been compromised as a result of where we're at right now. We owe the seniors an improved and expanded senior center, and that expansion and those improvements will be made possible once we're able to move the police headquarters out of its current location at Town Hall to 335 Lincoln Street. So before going on to the next part of the slides, we have available video presentations for the fire department, police department, and the senior center. Michelle, I'm wondering if you can place perhaps a link in the chat area so that people are able to click on them once they're finished this presentation and really see a good visual explaining the compelling needs at the North Fire Station and the police headquarters and the senior center. Is that possible, Michelle?
Actually, the chat feature is disabled for this meeting.
Oh,
Sorry, Joe,
so we
but people can find those videos on our town meeting website and on the Public Safety Facility Building Committee website as well.
So maybe at the conclusion of this, if you can actually read the specific web link that they can go to so they won't have to search and we'll just know exactly where to direct them, that would be great. So I want to shift the focus from the potential benefits of the proposed land acquisition to the specifics of the acquisition. The property consists of about 3.1 acres of land located on the northerly side of Route 3A at the Hingham Shipyard and right where the MBTA commuter parking lot is located, and it is immediately next door to the Fresh Market. Next slide. Now, as most of you know who are listening to this call, the town does not make snap decisions about these types of capital expenditures. We move only after careful consideration, and we move forward in stages, giving the selectmen, town officials, and town residents the opportunity carefully to evaluate each step. At the annual town meeting in June, the town adopted 4 articles that are relevant here. One, authorizing the selectmen to conduct a feasibility study to see if 335 Lincoln Street is a feasible location for a public safety facility. We adopted an article establishing a public safety building committee to conduct that feasibility study. The town authorized the selectmen to begin designing a possible expansion of the senior center, and finally established a senior center building committee. So the town Board of Selectmen, along with the town moderator, appointed the Public Safety Building Committee. And I'm going to introduce Bob Garrity, who is the chair of that committee, but it's before turning over the microphone to him, I just want to emphasize how fortunate we were to get Bob to participate in this. He has served the town in numerous capacities. He served as the former chair of the Hingham Country Club Development Management Committee. He's the former chair of the Hingham School Building Committee for the Hingham High School and South Elementary School. And he's the former chair of the Hingham Building Committee for the new DPW building facilities and the new athletic fields, the Carlson Field. So with that, I'd like to turn the next presentation over to Bob.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. I am the chair of the Public Safety Building Committee, and back in the June town meeting, our committee was created, and one of the initial requirements or charges that the town gave to our committee was to independently determine if the 335 Lincoln Street parcel was a feasible location for the eventual development of a new public safety building that would house both the replacement fire station for the North Fire Station, as well as an entirely new headquarters for the police department. Okay, now, if the town in some future date decides to appropriate money for the design and construction of a facility, then my building committee would pick up the ball and oversee the design and construction. But at this point in time, all the special town meeting is going to do is look at whether the 335 Lincoln Street should be purchased by the town. Now, in order to determine if the 335 Lincoln Street parcel was a feasible site for this project, the committee my building committee reviewed a lot of information about the site, as well as the proposed building that was the subject of a feasibility study that was conducted by an architectural firm, Castle Booz Associates, concurrently with the work that we were doing to try to assess the feasibility of the site. So Castle Booz is an architectural firm that specializes in the design and overseeing the construction of public safety facilities, and they're a highly competent firm. So basically, our committee was asked to look at a lot of different information to determine whether this was the right site, 335 Lincoln Street, for a future public safety facility that would accommodate the fire department and the police department needs. Now, the type of information we looked at had to do with looking at just the legal conditions that applied to the site. And in that regard, we wanted to make sure that the site itself would be clear of any kind of legal restraints that some of the neighbors might have. We did, with the help of the town's legal counsel for real estate, Susan Murphy, we got a lot of information from Susan, including information that showed that there were some subsurface utility lines that were active on the site. And in looking at that, combined with our review of the rough design of the site, we determined that those easements would not have any type of impact at all on the feasibility of building on this particular site. One other important aspect of our review had to do with looking at the physical condition of the soils on the site. Right now, a large portion of the site, probably 60% of it, is covered by an old foundation that was the foundation for buildings that were used when the site was used as part of the Hingham shipyard. So we wanted to make sure that there were no hidden problems, I guess you'd call it, with the site that could arise during the design and construction phase that might go to the question of feasibility of the site. So we reviewed information that was prepared to review the soil conditions at the site. As it turns out, the majority, perhaps all of the soils at the site are basically fill, which is not which is a good thing for construction purposes. So that wouldn't be any problem. We also focused our review on information having to do with potential environmental problems that there might be in the subsurface conditions. For example, if there was some sort of hazardous materials left over on the site from the days when it was used for a shipyard. And we reviewed soils investigations and found that there was no indication that there were any kind of hazardous materials out there. We even reviewed information where the testers actually can kind of x-ray right through the foundation into the site to determine if there are any kind of spaces in the land which would be indicative of former tanks that held, or that had been abandoned, that held oil, which could have compromised the feasibility of the site. All of those studies turned out to be, there was no problem that we've become aware of. So none of those aspects, there was nothing wrong with the site itself, the physical condition of the site, that would at all compromise our determination as to whether it was feasible for the construction that's being contemplated. Now, the other important piece of our study, our review, was to work with Castle Booze to determine if there were any, to determine how their conceptual plan for a combined public safety facility would be, how that would be placed on the site, how large it would be, what the egress and access requirements would be for the, particularly for the emergency vehicles such as fire engines, because they'd have to leave the site and come onto the site in an emergency phase, and they'd be getting onto the site. They'd be egressing the site right onto Route 3A, which is, of course, a very busy road. So we looked at a lot of information about the access and egress to Route 3A, and we were convinced. We brought in a traffic engineer who's highly considered. He's done a lot of these types of facilities, and he concluded, and we all agreed, that the main egress problems to the site, or issues with the site, would be remedied if we could install an emergency traffic light to allow the fire department's trucks to leave the site and get back to the site. And we reviewed the surrounding traffic requirements and parking requirements that would be all part of this project if it comes to pass and goes into design and construction. and we determined that there were no problems with egress access to the site, and there were no problems with parking. We had ample parking to handle all the fire department and police department's requirements, as well as all the requirements of having portions of the site be used by the public to access the site, primarily to visit the police department and the fire department when they had to do so. So after looking at all of this information, and it was pretty intense effort over a 2-month period by our committee. And we got great cooperation from Castle Blues, as well as the fire department, police department, and the selectman's office. And it eventually got to a point where we had to decide as our committee whether we could determine that this was in fact a feasible site for the construction of the combined fire and police department public safety facility. And our committee voted unanimously that yes, 335 Lincoln Street is a feasible site for building a building which will be able to carry out the police department and the fire department's current and future needs for about, looking out toward about a 50 to 70 year lifetime of a new building. That's what our focus was on. So we voted unanimously that yes, this is indeed a feasible site. And there'd be no kind of problems of which we're aware of that we could even contemplate that would challenge that basic conclusion by us that the site's good for the purposes that the town is now considering buying the property for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Michelle, next slide. Okay, so let's talk price and timing. The purchase price is set at $5.475 million pursuant to the purchase and sale agreement. We had the property appraised in February of 2020. And as you can see, the purchase price is above the appraised value. And so the selectmen looked at that and said, why do we want to consider purchasing above the appraised price? And so we considered that. And quite frankly, we were faced with a couple factors. Current market conditions have resulted in increased demand for industrial property in Hingham. We've seen that the town's permitting departments have been receiving calls, not just in 2020, but also in 2019, from potential buyers seeking information about allowed uses at this parcel. And during our negotiations with the seller, another party bid against the town for 335 Lincoln. So the Board of Selectmen reviewed the transaction and determined that the pricing was fair for the town, given the benefits that we would get and given the market conditions that were prevailing. The cost to the town over the first 2 years, knowing that this would be funded through borrowing, the debt service is projected for year 1 and year 2 to be approximately $27,000 per year. And then once further funding is done on a permanent basis, the annual costs of the purchase of the property would be approximately $500,000 per year. Next slide. So you can see the potential benefits that purchasing this property will offer the town. Modern and safe fire and police facilities, cost savings and operational efficiencies, the ability for us to plan for a facility that will accommodate both male and female firefighters and officers, an appropriate sized and configured space to accommodate public safety work and public business, would allow the senior center at school administration and other town hall departments to utilize the existing police space at town hall. It maintains the senior center at town hall, which is a result that is highly desirable by the seniors. At least that is clearly the message that's been delivered to us. Allows for expanded services in all 3 departments to meet projected growth, and it relieves parking issues at Town Hall, parking issues faced by employees, neighbors, and members of the public. Next slide, please. So why now? Why do we need to have town meeting now? And the reason is, under the negotiated agreement, the town will lose the opportunity to purchase the property if we do not inform the seller by November 30th of 2020 that we're prepared to move forward. The town has looked extensively for other locations, and there are no viable alternative locations. There have been active search since 2015. We do not want to lose this opportunity to solve the space needs for the fire department, police department, senior center, school administration, and other town hall departments. It would be a missed opportunity if we did not proceed now, given the current borrowing environment. It would be a low debt service to hold the property while the town develops its plans. We need to move forward. It would not jeopardize the AAA bonding status of the town, and we can take advantage of that status to finance this project. Next slide. So the specific question that will be raised at town meeting, and I'm going to read the article. It's one article. Will the town vote, 1, to authorize but not require the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase the property located at 335 Lincoln Street, Hingham, Massachusetts, in accordance with the terms and conditions of a purchase and sale agreement between the town and 291 Mystic LLC. And 2, to authorize but not require the Board of Selectmen to grant and accept all easements necessary to develop said property. And 3, to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to be used by the Board of Selectmen to acquire said property and to take all actions necessary to complete said purchase or act on anything relating thereto. This article has been reviewed by the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Committee, and we have both voted unanimously in support of this article. Next slide. So this brings us to frequently asked questions. There'll be an opportunity for members of the public who are participating in this Zoom call to ask questions, but I wanted to start by going over the questions that have been presented to us either by email or by phone, and to direct them, to answer them directly. So, and I'm going to call on the town administrator, Tom Mayo, to respond to some of these questions as we proceed. So let's go to the next slide. First question, will the public safety facility project affect the Foster School timeline? And before, Tom, you go into it, I just want to note that the North Fire Station is the station responsible for responding to fire and health emergencies at Foster School. So this is important not only for the town at large, but specifically for Foster School. So Tom, please proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. I want to confirm you can hear me.
Yes.
Great. So the answer to the question is no. As you can see on this slide, Foster School and the public safety facility could move forward on parallel tracks. Hingham entered into the Massachusetts School Business Authority program for Foster in 2019 on our third try after having been rejected in 2018 and 2017. This is important because the MSBA program will provide the town with several $1 million towards the project. Earlier this year, the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Committee unanimously supported additional funding for the Foster School feasibility study and made this presentation annual town meeting in June, which then approved these funds. The town is on target to hopefully be authorized to move into the feasibility study stage for Foster School in December of 2020, having met all prior deadlines in May, June, and September. Some of the efforts to date to forward the Foster School initiative include an education profile, town meeting appropriations, the formation and subsequent appointment of a school building committee, the creation of a maintenance plan and an enrollment study and a transportation study. And it's, the municipal and school leaders will continue to work together and participate in regular required MSBA sessions to meet deadlines and to keep the project moving forward.
Tom, thank you. Okay, next slide. We've been asked, and I've been asked, what is the breakdown of the town's debt service as it relates to school facilities and other capital projects? Tom?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. As you can see from this slide, 74% of the debt service in FY20 has gone to support school facilities, with the remaining going to support municipal programs and facilities. In that roughly $4 million number that is supporting the school facilities, the debt service is for the high school, South Elementary School projects, Plymouth River and Foster Elementary improvements, the new East Elementary School, the new middle school, and the high school athletic fields.
So Tom, am I correct that FY20 is the most recent year that we have for this debt service analysis?
Sorry, yes, it is. Thank you, Joe.
Great, thanks. Okay, next slide. Why focus on this project now? Why focus on the acquisition for the public safety facility instead of addressing the lack of full-time in-person learning for our children? And quite frankly, before I let you respond, Tom, in my view, it's a false trade-off. It's not you do one or the other. We need to move forward with both. So Tom, please respond.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. The problem is a lack of space, as has been said. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the lack of space to open safely, given the Department of Public Health's recommendation to keep people a minimum of 6 feet apart, and staff shortages due to a lack of qualified applicants, the superintendent is hindered in his ability to bring all students back to full-time in-person learning. Staff shortages are affecting all school districts in the state right now. Hingham's staffing vacancies have been funded and have been posted, though vacancies remain. The school administration has identified the possibility of leasing St. Jerome's school facility in Weymouth to augment Hingham's school infrastructure, thereby providing the more space for in-person learning. This solution will be partially funded by the CARES Act. I am working with Dr. Austin to do whatever we can to make this solution a reality, including providing additional funds as necessary. The school superintendent is part of the COVID-19 command group, along with myself, the assistant town administrator, the fire and police chiefs, the executive health officer, and the deputy chiefs, to evaluate COVID-19 trends and safety protocols and to assist the superintendent in his decision-making. Dr. Austin works with the town's executive health officer on a daily basis to monitor state guidelines and protocols, COVID-19 spread in the community and in schools, and to conduct contact tracing. Everyone's goal is to return to in-person learning quickly and safely.
Thank you, Tom. Michelle, next slide. Will the land purchase affect the school budget funding?
So no, the answer to the question is no. The school budget, like it is every year, will be determined through the annual budgeting process, which begins each fall and occurs in public meetings of the school committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the advisory committee. The school department's needs are vetted and funded during this process, and the school budget is approved in aggregate. Actual school spending is necessarily determined by the school administration. The urgency before the town related to 335 Lincoln Street is the November 30th, 2020 deadline in the purchase and sale agreement. If the town does not approve the purchase in the next 20 or so days, we will lose the property.
Thank you. Next slide. So this is our conclusion. And again, there'll be opportunity for more questions later. This is the opportunity to move forward, and it goes away after November 30th with no viable alternatives available. The advisory committee and the Board of Selectmen have voted unanimously in support of the property purchase. It offers us the opportunity, being a unique property, to solve multiple town needs. We have the opportunity for a modern and safe facility for our public safety professionals. We need an expansion of the senior center. If we purchase the property, there will be minimal cost to the town in the initial 2 years. Foster School is on its own path with the MSBA that is not affected by this purchase, and return to in-person learning will not be affected by this purchase. And I just want to end, I mentioned before that there are videos posted on the town website that will really highlight the facility at the North Fire Station and at the police headquarters that make a compelling case that we need to move them, and we need to move now. So people, if you want to write it down, the website address is www.hingham-ma.gov/241/town-meeting. That's www.hingham-ma.gov/241/town-meeting. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully we can move forward. Mary, I will turn the meeting back to you.
Joe, thank you. And thank you on behalf of the board and the town for your leadership on this effort. And also many thanks to all of the town staff and dedicated citizen volunteers who have really worked to bring this to fruition. Joe mentioned that we've given this careful consideration, and that consideration actually started back in 2012. And we are grateful to current and past citizen committees for helping bring us to this point. Before opening it up to the public for questions or comments, I'd like to ask my colleague Bill Ramsey if he had any comments that he would like to make at this point.
Yes, thank you, Mary. I do have a couple comments. I first want to thank Joe for your hard work on this initiative. I want to thank Tom and Michelle as well as and also the building committee for the many hours they put into this project. I want to speak to just quickly two collateral issues, and I want to speak to the merits of the article. I want to emphasize a point that you've all heard tonight, and the first one is that this purchase will in no way, shape, or form impact the school budget or the town operational budget. It's a completely separate financing initiative. It will not affect the school budget in any way. Secondly, I want to note kind of another important issue I've been hearing a lot about lately, and that is about Foster School. And our focus on Foster School and what kind of a priority Foster School is for this board and for our town. I actually went to Foster School. I went through Foster School in the late 80s. And when I brought my oldest son there a couple of years ago, I remember walking around the school and thinking to myself, this school hasn't changed one shape or form since when I went here. And then I thought to myself that's not a good thing. And it's kind of a sad thing. And then a couple of years later, all three of my children are there. And then one of the coldest days of the year in February, the heating system collapses on us. And we have to move every child from that school to the high school for the day. So we're focused on Foster. And Foster is a major priority for this board. And you've kind of seen the timeline that's taking shape with Foster. I can tell you that I am certainly committed to Foster. I believe my colleagues are as well. And there's a process in place. We can do both. We can finance this project, and we can also address the Foster needs when that time is appropriate down the road. And a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to tour the North Station Fire Station and the North Hingham Fire Station and the police station. And sadly, the pictures that you saw on the screen that Chief Murphy put up there are a fair and accurate representation of the sad state of affairs of that fire station. Over the years, the fire apparatus has increased in size. They can barely fit into the space that's there, and this building was built in 1942. Another major concern for me is the fact that the firefighters' protective gear cannot be properly disinfected when they come back from a fire. So when they come back, they put it into a little space in the building. And then when they go back out on a run, they're wearing gear that is definitely not cleaned properly. And that's because of the space they're in. And lastly, the quality of work / living area there is horrendous. There's leaking from the ceilings. I saw some mold in there. Tile was not aligned properly. There's a need there. And then later in the day, I went over to the police station, and Chief Jones gave me a tour of that area. And as soon as we walk in the station, he brought me to like a little office. And I said, well, what goes on in here? And he said, it's used to process firearm applications. It's used by our mental health advocate. It's used by the animal control officer. And I said, well, you have 4 people working out of this little office in here? And he said, yes. Now, as we took the tour of the building, every single area within the police station is used for multiple different purposes. Their evidence room is a closet. Their armory is a closet. You know, as someone who's worked as a prosecutor for a good part of my career, not only do I worry about their quality of work over there, but I worry about their ability to function as a law enforcement agency and to process evidence and to properly write reports. It's not a good situation. And lastly, I want to end with the fact that, you know, we have been trying to address this problem for years, and we now have an opportunity to really address 3 significant needs: police, fire, and our senior center, which also is in significant need of expansion. And the reason why we're doing this now, as Joe indicated, is time is of the essence. If we didn't have to go out there, you know, next weekend in the freezing cold and do this, we wouldn't. But if we don't act now, we lose the ability to buy this land, and we lose our ability to solve a problem that was going to be with us for years to come. So I would encourage everybody to support this initiative.
Thank you very much, Bill. I would just make a couple of final points. A lot of this conversation has talked about significant facility needs in the town of Hingham. And we know these facility needs have been coming. We have been preparing for them, in particular in collaboration with our advisory committee. We've been looking at making sure that we can have the financial capacity to do these projects. But I also just do want to point out to the public, lest people think that we have not been taking care of our assets. From the year 2000 to the year 2018, the town of Hingham spent close to $200 million on capital improvements. And you know, Tom talked about some of the projects that were involved in that. It was well over $100 million for school facilities. We renovated the central fire station, a new DPW facility. So over the last 20 years, the town has been spending on average $10 million on its infrastructure. As we approach a period of time where many assets that were all built around the same time are reaching the end of their extended life, as I said, we have been anticipating this and have been working to build the financial capacity. That's also a reason why the town was eager to partner with the MSBA on Foster School. It is also why we are working to partner with the MSBA on the Plymouth River Window Project. When the pandemic hit, the MSBA contacted Hingham to say, are we still interested in moving ahead on Foster School? And are we still interested in our application for the Plymouth River Window Project to be funded? And you know, where a lot of communities right now are not moving forward on things because of the pandemic, we're in a good situation in that our financials are fundamentally strong, so we can move ahead on these things. And as Tom's mentioned, as we've looked at all of our capital projects, we've looked at each of them individually, but we've also looked at them in totality. I'd just close with a story, and Joe, you're going to remember this, but about a year ago, you and then Selectman Karen Johnson and I were invited to a meeting in the senior center. And you'll probably remember that we couldn't go into the main room because there was a class going on, but we went into a smaller room, and I think there were probably 40 or 50 seniors who were in the room with us. And we talked for well over an hour about the needs of the seniors and the inadequacies of the facilities. And we heard from a lot of people who shared personal experiences as to how they use the senior center, the services that aren't being provided. And I think that I walked away from that meeting understanding that our seniors have been very patient with us over the last, in particular, 8 years, as we've looked to try to solve some of these facility issues. And while we're looking at a parcel of land for a public safety facility, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this helps us solve the space issues at the senior center, which, you know, again, if the police station were to be relocated to 335 Lincoln Street, that would then enable us to do a renovation of that space in Town Hall and triple the size of our senior center. While that project is maybe 2 years further on beyond the completion of a public safety facility, I would point out that if this land purchase doesn't happen, we're stopped dead in our tracks for a North Fire Station solution, dead in our tracks for a police station solution, and similarly for a senior center. So, you know, a lot of good things can happen with this upcoming town meeting. It can put us on a good path. And our hope is that as the citizens of Hingham and our fellow voters come to town meeting, we consider the merits of this warrant article as well as the potential impact that it could have on many parts of our community. So with that, we are now going to open it up to questions and comments from the public. If you could please, if you would like to be recognized, please use the raise hand function. When you are recognized, we would ask that you please give your name and your address. Please direct your comments or questions to the chair. If I can't answer the question, which is probably likely, we'll deflect it to the appropriate person to answer. And I would also just ask, for the purposes of time, we're going to ask each speaker to maybe limit their questions or comments to 3 minutes so that we can answer as many questions as possible. So I'd recognize Ray Estes. Good evening, Ray.
Hi, Mary. Thanks. Great presentation. Just a quick question.
Ray, could you give your name and address for the record? We
Yeah,
all know you, but we need it for the record.
I apologize. Ray Estes, 92 Fort Hill Street.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Great presentation. Just real briefly, I assume this is the case. The November 30th date is likely a deadline, an approvals date in your purchase and sale agreement. And if you could just confirm that we're not going to, assuming the worst case scenario happens and we're not able to approve this at special town meeting, which I hope does not happen because I think this is a good project that needs to happen, long time coming. I assume there's no deposit at risk, and there's nothing that we will lose in the event we cannot go forward as of November 30th.
I'm actually going to ask Tom Mayo. Thank you for raising your hand, Tom. I was going to call on you for that.
Happy to beat that, right? Thank you for the question, Ray. That's right. We need to show that the appropriation has been obtained before November 30th, and we need to close before the end of the year. And there is no down payment or anything like that at risk.
Great, thank you.
If I can just add to that, Ray, so that was part of the negotiation. And we've had discussions about whether or not we could just extend that deadline. And the answer was a clear, unambiguous no.
Yes, and I would just piggyback on that and say that, you know, one of the questions the board considered was whether the pandemic has affected the real estate market. And interestingly, the industrial space market, which is what this parcel is zoned, that has actually, as you're giving the thumbs up, the demand for this space has actually increased post-pandemic. And as Joe mentioned, there were other bidders on this property. There were other people interested. Those people haven't gone away. So, you know, we should not, if the meeting decides not to authorize this, we should not count on that parcel being available at a future date. Anyone else? Questions?
Mary, I'm going to close the screen share so it's easier to see.
I am, yeah, I am not seeing any additional hands. I would take this opportunity, first of all, to once again thank my colleagues, thank our wonderful town employees, thank interested members of the public for engaging in this. I would remind everybody that town meeting is taking place next Saturday, November 21st at noon at the high school multipurpose field. For those who attended the annual town meeting in June, we will have multiple locations for check-in. We will have many of the same protocols in place with respect to safety and distancing. And so before adjourning the meeting, I do see another hand, and I'd like to recognize Mr. Tom O'Reilly.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for that. You know, I
Mr. O'Reilly,
appreciate-
could you please give your name and address for the
I'm
record?
sorry. Yes, this is Tom
Thank you.
O'Reilly, 19 Porter's Cove Road, Hingham, Massachusetts. Thank you all for your comments and work. You know, this is a crazy time, and I appreciate your making available. I did find some difficulty in getting on tonight, and I don't know if anyone else has had that and whether or not that represents any lower participation than normal. If not, sorry about that. I guess I have a comment, which is, you know, first of all, that it's a shame indeed that there is such a lack of focus on the police, fire, and service spaces, that there has been such a lack of focus on that. And, you know, as someone with a long line of family members who are firefighters, and I feel deeply for the work that our first responders do in our community, do in all the different areas that they work in government. But that said, it strikes me as that it is a mistake to say that this project would not distract from the Foster School. I think that the failure to deliver on the Foster School over the last 20 years is equally, if not more, shameful than the issues we're facing in our other public facilities. It's not true that it's on track. It is way off track. It is many years behind being on track. And that this is a big failing, because there's probably no project that delivers more revenue income to the town to do other things than the quality of our schools, because that drives up the real estate values, and that drives up the real estate revenues that come in. I think that by moving forward with this project, it actually does distract. It takes resources and focus and energy away from the project. There is nothing more important for our town to do than support. That is what creates the revenue for everything else that goes. The higher the values, the higher the real estate revenue, taxes, the more we can do. I think the only way that this project can make sense is if the land is indeed purchased and held aside, not for a committed purpose, but to figure out how to use it as a way to forward the project that's called school. The Foster School miss is big. It affects not just the education of our students, but the value of our town. It is the single most important thing we do. If we compared outcomes for any of the projects that we consider investing in with this real estate, there's nothing that provides a bigger return. I think that it's a mistake to go forward with this project. I think that the most important thing we can do is say that the number one important thing in our town, the number one important thing, are the schools. It is a disgraceful building. It's been that way for 20 years. When my kids started there, and I don't know how we can let it keep going. We can say it's on track, but it's not. It's still years away from being accomplished. I think it should be put at the very top of the town's agenda. It should be said that Hingham believes in education. Funding its education, we have the resources to do everything else that's important to it. And I feel very strongly about that. I hope you'll rethink the position. I know that people are obviously well-intended and people have done a lot of homework, but to not focus on education, to not put that at the forefront. Too often the Board of Selectmen, select members of the board, that they spend too much time thinking of schools as another project, something somebody else is responsible for. And I don't mean that to be offensive or insulting. I just think that it is not common for us to hear a united voice on the importance of our schools. You should put it forward first. I hope you consider that as you go through your continued work. I think that there are a lot of community members who are very concerned about it. I don't know that these forums create the environment that's easiest for the attention of the community the way you want. I value that you put a lot of effort and time into this. I know what it's like to be a public servant, but I think that there's an important message here about community. And so I wanted to put that forward, that I think that we should not go forward with this unless in some way this project can turn into putting education first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. I'm just gonna a couple reactions, and thank you very much for joining us. And I apologize if you had technical trouble getting in, but I'm glad that you were able to. And to the extent that you or anyone else missed any part of the, any part of this program, I would point out that this is available on YouTube through Harbor Media for those who perhaps missed part of it. I will tell you right now that that the town is very actively involved in foster school with the MSBA process. In fact, tomorrow I'm going in to sign the enrollment certification, which is an important procedural step that allows the process to continue. When we work with the state on a school program, as we did with as we did with East School, or as we did with the middle school, the state actually has a process and they have timing. If we wanted to, we couldn't move any faster on foster right now because of the state process, and we wouldn't want to do that to forego, the funding. But I would also point out, and I believe it was in 2005, the school department actually put together a master plan looking at all its facilities. And town meeting adopted that master plan, and it essentially called for a few things. First and foremost, again, valuing education in this community, it said we needed to have a 4th elementary school in Hingham, that was the top priority, and that doing that would provide more space, more seats, more options. When town meeting actually authorized the debt exclusion to construct East School, at the time, we also said we need to make some investments into Foster School and Plymouth River School. So town meeting actually authorized an investment of $3.5 million into each of those schools. And certainly we understood that there were some structural deficiencies, particularly at Foster. But what we said was, we're going to spend a little bit of money on Foster and Plymouth River to kind of breathe 10 to 15 years of life into those schools. And so that happened in 2008. And the next priority, according to the school master plan, was the middle school. And as those who were here remember, that in 2011, when the middle school, we entered the MSBA program to replace the middle school. Probably 5 years ago, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, there was discussion about different education infrastructure projects. And I remember calling the chair of the school committee at the time and saying, why don't we go ahead and put a warrant article together to get money for feasibility, so that if foster school is accepted by the MSBA, we can get going quickly and not lose time. And in fact, 4 years ago, town meeting did authorize those feasibility funds. As my colleague mentioned, it took a few years to get acceptance into the MSBA program. It's not lost on me or anyone in the community that during that time, the school continued to deteriorate. But together we made decisions that we were going to try to go a 3rd time for the MSBA. And we are addressing foster school. And I think one of the things that our community has shown over time, and I think is one of the main reasons why we are a AAA bond community, is our ability to do several things at one time. And I have confidence in our town and school employees, all our dedicated volunteers, that we can move forward on a few projects at once. And I understand if others may have a different opinion, but did feel the need to respond to a few of the comments. Is there anyone else who has a question or comment? Okay, at this point, I am going to take a motion from my colleagues to adjourn. Joe,
I'll move to adjourn. Thank you for your time and for everyone's participation this evening.
do I hear a second? All those in favor by roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill? Mary? Aye.